Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Broncos live post-game show. I'm Phil Milani alongside Andrew Mason. We hope to hear from Matt Boyer in a little bit, who's inside the Broncos locker room. The Broncos lose 23-9 here today, finished the season 6-10. Mason, it was a sloppy game all around.
Yep, 4 turnovers on each side, and that doesn't even account for the interception in the fourth quarter on the 2-point conversion. So effectively 5 giveaways for the Broncos today in this game. 4 takeaways from the Chargers, of course, and the takeaways really helped the Broncos stay in it. Denver's defense didn't account for a score allowed until late in the third quarter. Certainly held its own, but then finally bent and broke later on, and Chargers kind of pulled away late. Yeah. Not an elegant game on either side, to say the least.
Yeah, Broncos certainly had their chances, and maybe were outplaying the Chargers for a period of time. Let's show you some of the highlights, how this game unfolded here today. The Broncos were down 7-0 in the second. A sort of a bizarre sequence here. Case Keenum picked off by Jaleel Addae in the end zone. Addae, though, tries to lateral the ball. The Broncos get it back, kick a field goal, head into halftime down 7-3. In the third quarter, another turnover. Tim Patrick stripped of the ball, and Joey Bosa recovers it. The Chargers would make him pay. A few plays later, Mike Williams finds the end zone. The Chargers up 14-3. The Broncos in the fourth, though, showed some life. Andy Janovich, a 20-yard score on the 2-point conversion try, though. Like Mace mentioned, the Chargers returned it, so it made it 16-9 LA. The Chargers responded and put this game out of reach. Austin Eckler, a 1-yard touchdown right up the middle, and the Broncos end up losing 23-9. Mace, the Broncos finished the season with a 4-game losing streak.
A 4-game losing streak. Of course, they went into this month talking playoffs. They'd won 3 in a row. They go to Cincinnati, get the win to start the month. And you thought a favorable schedule coming down the stretch. But of course, in Cincinnati, you lost Chris Harris Jr. for the season. A few days later, lose Emmanuel Sanders for the season with an Achilles tear that he suffered in practice. And those 2 punches were too much for the Broncos to overcome. 4 straight losses, and then kind of bigger picture than that over the course of the season, Phil, after winning their first 2 home games to start the year and start 2-0, 1-5 at home in their last 6 games.
Yeah.
Really tough for the home fans to see that.
Yeah, this Mile High used to be a place where opponents just came and couldn't handle the crowd noise, but today we saw the crowd doing the wave while the Broncos had the ball.
Yeah.
Tough to see that.
It was tough to see, but the fans are frustrated, and I think maybe a little bit apathetic at times during the game. And that's what happens when you have some back-to-back losing seasons now. A lot of frustration has set in. Of course, last week's loss sealed the first back-to-back losing seasons for the Broncos since 71 and 72, and this loss sealed the first consecutive 10-loss seasons in 51 years.
Yeah.
So the Broncos are in a tough spot, and a lot of fans, look, if you're 50, 55 and below, you haven't experienced anything like this as a Broncos fan. It's a tough deal.
Yeah, the Broncos, again, lose 23-9 to the Chargers. We hope to bring you some reaction from what must be a very frustrated Broncos locker room. We'll send things over to Matt Boyer once he's able to secure an interview. But, Mace, the Broncos finished the season 6-10, just a 1-game improvement from last year. But it felt like this team was much better than that.
Yeah, they were doing
times.
well. And certainly, look, before the Harris and Sanders injuries, they had something going. They had momentum. Felt like they had a template they could work with. Case Keenum playing mistake-free football for a few weeks there. That helped. You had the running game going with Philip Lindsay, and of course he ends up getting a Pro Bowl selection. I think the other thing, Phil, on the positive side, you do have some foundational pieces you can build around for the long term. Obviously, you know about Chris Harris Jr. and Von Miller and those guys, but when you had this rookie class doing so well, Lindsay getting a Pro Bowl slot, Bradley Chubb, 12 sacks, Deshaun Hamilton, Cortland Sutton making plays, although not the best of days for both of them. Potential touchdowns went through their grasp today. But Royce Freeman had a good game as well today. You have some foundational pieces that you can build around, and that's a good starting point for where you're trying to go in 2019 and beyond, because those guys are going to be crucial.
Yeah, exactly. You want to see the young guys play. They certainly played almost throughout the entire season. You know, you mentioned Philip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, those guys. Broncos probably will finish around, what, a number 10 pick again this year, Mace?
Yeah, I believe that's where they go right now. I think tonight's game I don't think has any impact on tiebreakers, and we'll see what the final scores are. But Green Bay lost. They dropped to 6-9-1, but the Broncos pick ahead of them. And at least based on my calculations, tiebreaker-wise, the Broncos will pick ahead of these 6-10 Bengals based on strength of schedule.
So the Broncos lose 23-9 against the Chargers, fall to 6-10 on the season. What happens now, Mace? Tomorrow the Broncos have a locker room clean out. We're expected to hear from John Elway, Joe Ellis, and just see where the state of this team is and where the mindset is heading into the offseason.
Yeah, it's going to be maybe an uncomfortable offseason. I think you've got a lot of key players with expiring contracts. You have some other players who don't have expiring contracts, but at the same time, there could be salary cap moves made. The Broncos do have plenty of room under the cap, but they may want to hit the free agent market hard. And again, I think you're going to see them take a long, hard look at quarterbacks in this draft. We know that John Elway, he was scouting Justin Herbert earlier this season. Of course, he opted to stay at Oregon, but he was at the Mizzou game Thanksgiving weekend watching Drew Lock play for the Tigers against Arkansas, and I'm sure he'll be back down at the Senior Bowl in a few weeks watching some more of these quarterback prospects and doing their homework. And looks like another year where we're talking about quarterback prospects going in the draft once again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Broncos offense, just 3 points in that first half. Yeah. We mentioned all the turnovers. It seemed like slow starts were a problem for this offense.
Slow starts and bad second quarters as well. I mean, so I think second quarter is probably more a problem for the defense than the offense over the course of the year. But yeah, it just seemed like they always took a while to get on track, and especially the last few weeks when you didn't have Emmanuel Sanders out there, and the proof is in the pudding of the points on the scoreboard. 14 points in San Francisco, 16 points against the Browns, 14 in Oakland, and only 9 today. So you haven't broken 20 since you lost Emmanuel Sanders. And that's another thing. Emmanuel Sanders recovering from the Achilles injury. What happens with him? He's still under contract, but the salary for next year is not guaranteed, and that Achilles injury when you're going into year 10 is pretty tough. But at the same time, given what you saw the offense was without him, which was struggling to move the ball on a consistent basis, you wonder if maybe they're going to try to bring Emmanuel Sanders back and see where he is coming off that Achilles injury. Because if he can get healthy and be back in the offense, certainly opens things up. But without him, there was really not much of a vertical threat. Teams stacked the box to stop the run, and the Broncos couldn't do what they do best. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders missed the final handful of games, and he still finished tied for receiving touchdowns with 4, tied with Cortland Sutton. So, the security blanket for Case Keenum gone when Emmanuel Sanders fell. And Mace, you mentioned it, a lot of free agents on this team. We might have seen a bunch of guys just play their last game in the orange and blue.
Yeah, that's true. And then even some guys that were injured and may have played their last game, like Matt Paradis. He's set to become a free agent. Of course, he had that horrific injury against the Texans back in early November. We'll see what they do with him. I think some of that may depend just on how well his rehab is going over the course of the offseason. So, yeah, you look at guys with expiring contracts. Shaq Barrett, for one, he's been a good player for this team, but he was on Orange and Blue 760 this week saying that he wants to start somewhere. And with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb working the edge, I don't see where the starting spot is for him on this roster, barring a drastic move. So I imagine Shaq Barrett may have played his last game, and others may have as well.
Yeah, maybe Brandon Marshall also may be playing his last game, and that's might be due to the rise of Josie Jewell, who's standing by with Matt Boyer inside the Broncos locker room.
Thanks, Phil. Yep, inside the Broncos locker room with Josie Jewell. Josie, this season. I know that on the outside, people said that this team didn't have anything to play for, but you guys played tough the entire game.
Yeah, there's always something to play for. Just like I heard Vaughn say, this is professional sports. It's the NFL. You're going to come out here every day and give it your best. Why not? If you don't want to do that, then you're probably not for the NFL. You're probably not going to make it. So I think Vaughn said it well last time. And there's always something to play for. You always want to beat everybody. You never want to lose a game. And I know exactly how everybody feels. They're all really competitive here, and nobody wants to lose a game. So it's always competitive around here.
You're going to take away from this your first season in the NFL, but what will be the lasting thought for you going into the 2019 season?
There's just a lot of things to work on. It's a hard game. You gotta be able to kind of break it down and make it easier and simple. Again, coaches have done a great job this year with that. I think with us, and especially Coach Herring, I think he's done a great job with that, and kind of trying to simplify it for you and make you understand it as easy as possible, and just kind of go run and flow and hit people. So there's a lot of things to take away and a lot of things to get better at. I think there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done, especially for myself.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Phil, we'll send it back to you out on the field.
Thank you very much, Matt. Josie Jewell finishing off a very impressive rookie campaign. Mace, though, the Broncos finished the season 6-10. It's their first consecutive losing seasons since 1972. So you know that there's going to be changes this offseason. Mace, what's the biggest area of need for this Broncos team?
Well, let's start on the defensive side. I think you've got a cornerback need now. Bradley Roby, he's another guy with an expiring contract. Maybe you bring him back. Maybe you look to the free agent market, but I would expect the Broncos, whether it's free agency or the draft, to bring in another cornerback one way or another, even if they re-sign Bradley Roby. On offense, I think you look at tight end. You had injuries there. Jeff Hireman, another guy with an expiring contract. Do you bring him back? We'll see. Jake Butt, you're hoping to get him healthy, but the history of knee injuries means you may not be able to rely on him like you prefer to. It's another good tight end class in the draft. Jared Cook is an unrestricted free agent in Oakland, so there are some possibilities there to upgrade that position. And then, maybe not in the short term, but a plan at quarterback for the long term. Case Keenum is going into the last year of his contract if he comes back for the 2019 season. And what the Broncos got from Case Keenum, some good, some bad. But going into today, his passer rating among eligible passers was only above rookies. So Broncos need a long-term plan there.
Those are the question marks on the offensive side. We'll go to the defensive side next, but first, let's go inside the Broncos locker room where Matt Boyer is standing by with Shelby Harris.
Shelby, just status of the locker room after you guys came in here.
You know, disappointed we didn't get the win. You know, we wanted to go in there and obviously play better. But status of the locker room, you know, at the end of the day, I'm proud of all my boys battling. You know, we stuck together this whole time. So, you know, everyone's down because of our season, but at the end of the day, we stuck together as a team and as like teammates and friends, and so that's all that matters.
What's the thing that you remember most about this 2018 season? You mentioned that this is the most talented team that he's been a part of, but he still had a losing season.
Oh, you mean my interception? No, I'm joking. No. I think the thing I remember the most about this season is, you know, a lot of stuff didn't go our way, and at the end of the day, we could have quit weeks ago, month or two ago. No one quit. Everyone kept fighting. Everyone kept battling. The effort was there on the field. That garbage I saw Witten saying about Roby is stupid. But other than that, though, like, I mean, that's the one thing I remember is at early it could have turned into last year, and you know what, we fought, and it didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but we fought, and that's why. I go home. I'll go home because we're not going to playoffs. But I'm joking. But at the end of the day, I know I'm not at all. No, I'm gonna take like a couple weeks off. You know, and get back to it. You know, there's nothing else you can do. Especially since I've been in the league, it's hard to watch the playoffs and everything. You know, if you're not in it. But we just gotta get back, regroup, and come back better.
So you kind of went through this last year where the season ends and there's this day here where there's uncertainty about the coaching staff and all that stuff. What's that like as a player?
This is my 5th year in the league. I've had 1, 2, I've had 4 coaches, I believe. This is the same thing, speculation after every year. I've had a coach fired mid-year, all that stuff. So same stuff, man. You just it's a business, man. It's the same day. If coach gets fired, players are going to lose their job too. So it's you know, it's the uncertainty of the league. It goes for both players and coaches, you know. I love Vance. I respect Vance. I hope everything works out. But at the end of the day, it is the business. It's the league.
Thank you very much, Matt. We'll find out what happens with Shelby Harris this offseason. Mesa, let's get a final thought from you here.
Just wasn't the season you wanted, wasn't the December you wanted, wasn't the game you wanted today. Just frustrating all around. Tough times in Broncos country, you know, and need a really good season next year to kind of reverse this slide of the last 2 seasons.
Agreed. The Broncos lose 23-9 to the Chargers and finish the season 6-10. All right, that's going to do it for us. For Matt Boyer, Andrew Mason, I'm Phil Milani.